starting to accidentally fall in love with my fiancé. I hate myself for it and don't know what to do about it. This whole mess started at Thanksgiving when my cousin Kelsey announced her third engagement, and yes, you read that right, third time's the charm apparently. My mom got that look where she starts mentally calculating how many grandchildren she's not getting from me, and before she could launch into her speech, I just blurted out, "Oh yeah, I'm engaged too." The table went dead silent, and then boom, everyone's screaming and hugging, and my mom's asking about venues before I even processed what I'd done. I spent the whole drive home wondering if I could convincingly fake my own death. So Monday I'm at work having a mental breakdown in the supply closet when Alan walks in looking for paper. We work at the same boring financial firm and usually just complain about Excel spreadsheets, but he found me crying and I told him everything. This man looks at me and goes, "I'll do it for $2,000. Turns out his student loans are culling him and he needed cash. We literally wrote up a contract on his laptop surrounded by office supplies. The rules were simple. No real touching besides hand-holding, and break up after Kelsey's wedding. And of course, split any gifts. Should have known we were screwed when we couldn't get our story straight at the first dinner. He said we met at a coffee shop, while I said work conference, and my sister Amy immediately smelled bullshit. My mom went full wedding planner mode and dragged us to venues I couldn't afford. I maxed out my credit card on deposits while pretending to care about flower arrangements. At one place they asked about our first dance song, and Alan panicked and said, "Don't stop believing." I wanted to die, but then he grabbed my hand and spun this whole story about never stopping believing we'd find each other, and even the wedding coordinator got misty. His mom found out on week 3. She called during our fake date night, which was actually just us eating takeout at the office. She started crying about grandchildren, and Alan looked like someone punched him. That's when he told me his ex-Priya cheated with his best friend, and he basically gave up on the whole relationship thing. But then something shifted. He started bringing me coffee without asking. I'd text him dumb memes at midnight. We destroyed everyone at couples game night without even trying. My dad pulled me aside after and said he'd never seen me look so comfortable with someone, and I felt like garbage. My therapist kept calling it self-sabotage, and I was like, yes, thank you for that groundbreaking insight. My nephew's birthday party was rough. Andrew kept making snide comments about my sudden engagement, and Alan shut him down cold. Later, I saw him pushing my nephew on the swings, making up these elaborate stories, and I had to leave because it felt too normal. When his ex texted wanting to talk, he showed me right away, and we both acted like it didn't matter, but I saw his hands shake. My mom called that night happy, crying about both her daughters finding love, and I actually threw up after we hung up. The guilt was eating me alive. We had this whole system going with shared calendars, joint accounts, and fake photos that looked better than most real couples. My other cousin cornered me at Kelsey's shower and said Alan looked at me like I was his whole world. I laughed it off but couldn't breathe properly after. 3 weeks before the wedding, we went cake tasting, and they asked about kids, and I just lost it. I started crying right there over vanilla versus chocolate. Alan held my hand and told them we were just emotional, and I realized I wasn't crying about lying anymore. He called that night and said he couldn't keep going, said pretending to care about me was making him realize how much he missed having something real. I reminded him about our contract, and he said screw the money, this was culling him. We agreed to get through Kelsey's wedding, then call it quits right away, instead of a few weeks later. The rehearsal dinner was brutal. Everyone kept making toasts about love and forever while Alan smiled like it physically hurt. Amy pulled me aside and said she knew something was weird, but she'd never seen me let someone in like this, and maybe I should fight for it. I found Alan on the balcony later, and we just stood there watching traffic. He asked if I ever thought about what would have happened if we met outside of work. I said yes, which definitely violated Section 3 of our contract about no hypotheticals. I went to bed having absolutely zero idea what to do. On wedding day, the reception hall doors opened and I stepped inside, my heart hammering against my ribs. The room sparkled with fairy lights and white roses, packed with relatives I'd been lying to for months. Alan stood by the bar, his tie slightly crooked, nursing what looked like his third whiskey. Our eyes met across the room and he started walking toward me, but my mom intercepted him first. She grabbed his arm and steered him toward the dance floor, leaving me stranded by the gift table. My hands shook as I watched them talk, her gestures animated while he nodded along. Then she pointed at me and his face went pale. My stomach dropped to my shoes. Mom marched over, her expression unreadable. She took my elbow and guided me through the crowd, past cousins taking selfies and Uncle Jerry doing his terrible robot dance. We ended up in the hotel's side parlor, empty except for overflow chairs and a wilting centerpiece. "Sit," she commanded, closing the door behind us. I sank into a chair, my dress bunching awkwardly around my knees. She paced in front of me, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. The silence stretched until I wanted to scream. "I know," she finally said. My mouth went dry. "Know what? About you and Alan? That it's fake." She stopped pacing and faced me. "I've known for months." The room tilted. I gripped the chair arms, trying to process her words. "How?" "I called his office in January. Wanted to surprise you both with lunch reservations." Her voice cracked. His coworker answered and said Alan wasn't there, that he was probably at home since you two weren't really dating anyway. Tears burned my eyes. All those months of elaborate lies, the stress, the guilt, and she'd known the whole time. I waited for the explosion, the disappointment, the lecture about honesty and family values. Instead, she collapsed into the chair beside me and started crying. "Mom?" I reached for her hand, but she pulled away, covering her face. "My mother died when I was 32, she said through her fingers. Brain aneurysm. One day she was planning my sister's baby shower. The next, she was gone. I'd heard this story before, but never like this. Never with her voice breaking on every word. She never saw me get married, never met her grandchildren, never got to see me happy." Mom dropped her hands, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "And I'm terrified, Angelica. Terrified that something will happen to me before I see you truly happy." My chest tightened. "Mom, you're healthy. Nothing's going to." That's what I thought about my mother. She grabbed my hands, squeezing too tight. "I push you because I'm scared. Every birthday, every holiday, I think about how many I might have left. How many chances to see you find someone who loves you the way you deserve." The tears came then, hot and unstoppable. She pulled me into a hug that smelled like her signature perfume and hairspray. We sat there crying while the reception music thumped through the walls. "I'm sorry," I whispered into her shoulder. "I'm so sorry for lying. I'm sorry for pushing so hard you felt you had to." She pulled back, cupping my face. "But honey, that boy out there, the way he looks at you isn't fake." Before I could respond, the door burst open. Alan stood there, breathing hard, his face flushed. "I need to talk to you," he said. "Right now." Mom squeezed my shoulder and left, closing the door behind her. Alan paced the same path she had, running his hands through his hair. "What's What's wrong? I asked, though everything was wrong. He stopped and faced me. I got a job offer. Seattle. Senior analyst position with a signing bonus that would wipe out my loans. The words hit like physical blows. Seattle. 3,000 miles away. Of course this would happen now. That's great. I managed. Is it? He laughed, but it sounded broken. Because I've been staring at the offer letter for 3 days, and all I can think about is how I don't want to leave. Your loans? Screw the loans. He dropped into Mom's abandoned chair. I've been telling myself this whole thing was about money, but that's bull. I could have found other ways to pay them. My heart raced. Then why? Because I'm an idiot who needed an excuse to spend time with you. He met my eyes. Because after Priya, I convinced myself I was done with relationships. But then you cried in that supply closet and asked me to be your fake boyfriend, and I thought, here's a way to be close to someone without the risk. Alan, except there's no such thing as fake feelings, is there? Every dinner with your parents, every stupid wedding venue, every time you held my hand, I fell a little harder. He stood abruptly. I've been using this fake relationship to avoid admitting I want a real one. With you. The door opened again. Amy poked her head in, eyes wide. Sorry to interrupt, but Kelsey's about to cut the cake and Mom's looking for you both. She paused, taking in our faces. Everything okay? No, I said, standing on shaky legs. But it will be. We followed Amy back to the reception. The crowd gathered around the cake table where Kelsey and her new husband posed with a knife. I spotted my parents near the front. Mom's makeup freshly fixed. I need to do something, I told Alan. He nodded, understanding without explanation. That's how it always was with us, even when we were pretending. I pushed through the crowd until I reached the microphone stand. The DJ looked confused but handed it over. The room quieted, hundreds of eyes turning to me. Hi everyone. Sorry to interrupt. My voice shook. I know this is Kelsey's day, and I promise I'll be quick. Kelsey nodded, curious but supportive. My throat felt like sandpaper. Most of you know Alan and I got engaged a few months ago. I found his face in the crowd. What you don't know is that it started as a lie. Gasps rippled through the room. Uncle Jerry dropped his drink. My mom stepped forward, but Dad held her back. I panicked at Thanksgiving and said I was engaged when I wasn't. Then I paid Alan to pretend to be my fiancé. The words tumbled out faster. We had a contract, rules, an end date. Andrew smirked from his table, vindicated. Other relatives whispered behind their hands. I pushed on. But somewhere between fake venue tours and pretend date nights, something changed. He became my best friend. The person I text when I can't sleep. The one who knows exactly how I take my coffee. My voice cracked. I've spent months lying to all of you, and I'm sorry. You deserve better. Alan deserves better. The thing is, I continued, looking directly at him now, I don't want fake anymore. I don't want contracts and rules and end dates. I want messy and real and complicated. I want Angelica. A voice cut through my confession. Not Alan's. Not supportive or understanding. My Aunt Victoria stood near the back, her expression sharp as broken glass. Dad's older sister had always been different from the rest of the family. Where they were warm, she calculated. Where they forgave, she remembered. How touching, she said, her voice carrying despite the distance. Though I have to wonder what else you've been lying about. The room shifted, attention ping-ponging between us. Something in her tone made my skin crawl. Victoria, my dad warned. She ignored him, walking forward with deliberate steps. I mean, if you could lie about something as sacred as an engagement, what else might you be hiding? I just told everyone the truth, I said into the microphone. Did you? She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Did you tell them about the money you borrowed from your grandmother's estate? The family business accounts you've been managing? My blood turned to ice. I hadn't taken anything, but the way she said it, the careful emphasis, made it sound damning. That's enough, Alan said, stepping forward. Victoria turned her shark smile on him. Oh, the fake fiancé speaks. Tell me, did she pay you from the family funds? Stop it, Amy said, moving to my side. But Victoria wasn't done. She pulled out her phone, scrolling with theatrical precision. Funny thing about family businesses, paper trails, signatures, things that can be misinterpreted. My legs felt weak. The microphone slipped in my sweaty grip. Around us, relatives murmured, the mood shifting from shock about my confession to something darker. What do you want? I asked. Her smile widened. What I've always wanted. What should have been mine. The reception hall fell silent except for the distant clatter of kitchen staff. Victoria's heels clicked against the marble floor as she approached the microphone stand, her movements calculated and predatory. The family business, she continued, holding up her phone like evidence. The one your father built from nothing. The one that should have gone to the eldest child. Dad stepped forward from the crowd, his face flushed. We've been through this. You got your share when you divorced Marcus. My share? Victoria's laugh was bitter. 20% while you kept controlling interest? While your precious daughters get positions they never earned? I gripped the microphone tighter. I work in accounts receivable. I file invoices and chase payments. That's it. Is it? She swiped through her phone. Because I have some very interesting documentation here. Transfers, signatures, all with your name on them. Alan moved closer to the microphone stand, positioning himself between Victoria and me. Behind him, I saw Mom clutching Dad's arm, her earlier tears replaced by confusion. You're lying, Amy said, her voice cutting through the tension. Angelica would never, wouldn't she? Victoria turned to address the crowd. She just admitted to lying to all of you for months, paying someone to pretend to love her. What else might she be capable of? My cousin Nathan stood up from his table. Aunt Victoria, this is Kelsey's wedding. Can't this wait? No, it can't. Victoria's mask of civility slipped. I've waited 40 years while my brother played favorites, while he groomed his daughters to take over what should have been mine. The microphone feedback screeched as I adjusted my grip. Around the room, relatives shifted uncomfortably. Kelsey stood frozen by the cake, her new husband's arm around her shoulders. Show us then, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Show everyone these supposed documents. Victoria's smile returned. She connected her phone to the reception hall's projection system with practiced ease. The fairy lights dimmed as financial documents appeared on the wall behind the head table. 3 months ago, she narrated, $50,000 transferred from the business account to a personal account. Your signature on the authorization. I stared at the projected image, my stomach churning. It was my signature, but I'd never authorized that transfer. The account number wasn't even mine. That's not my account, I said into the microphone. Of course you'd say that. Victoria clicked to the next image. Here's another. 75,000. 2 months ago. Dad pushed through the crowd, studying the projection. These are forgeries. Angelica doesn't have access to those accounts, doesn't she? Victoria produced a folder from her purse. I have the account access logs right here. Her login credentials, her password changes. Alan took the folder before she could distribute copies, flipping through the pages. His expression darkened with each document. These timestamps, he said slowly. Half of them are from when we were together. I can prove she wasn't at the office. Victoria's eyes narrowed. The fake boyfriend provides an alibi? How convenient. It's not fake, Alan said quietly, but the room heard every word. Maybe it started that way, but nothing. Victoria snatched the folder back. This family has been hemorrhaging money, and now we know why. The golden daughter needed funds for her elaborate deception. That's insane, Amy protested. Angelica maxed out her credit cards for fake wedding deposits. Why would she steal money and then go into debt? To cover her tracks, obviously. Victoria addressed the crowd again. Make it look like she's struggling while siphoning funds elsewhere. My hands trembled as I set down the microphone. The room spun slightly, faces blurring together. Cousins who'd hugged me an hour ago now whispered behind their hands. Uncle Jerry had sobered up remarkably fast, his expression grim. I need air, I mumbled, pushing past Alan toward the exit. Running away? Victoria called after me. Just like you ran from the truth about your engagement? I made it to the hallway before the tears came. The elegant carpet muffled my footsteps as I fled toward the elevator. Behind me, I heard Alan calling my name, but I couldn't face him. Couldn't face any of them. The elevator doors opened to reveal my grandmother's sister, Aunt Catherine, leaning heavily on her walker. She'd flown in from Florida for the wedding, her first family event in years. Angelica? She peered at me through thick glasses. What's wrong, dear? I couldn't speak through the sobs. She maneuvered her walker to make room, patting the elevator wall. Come in, child. Let's get you sorted. The doors closed on the chaos behind us. Aunt Catherine pressed the button for the third floor, humming softly as we rose. She didn't ask questions, didn't demand explanations. When we reached her room, she simply handed me tissues and pointed to the sofa. Now then, she said, settling into an armchair with considerable effort. Tell me everything. So I did. The whole messy truth poured out. The fake engagement, the real feelings, Victoria's accusations. Aunt Catherine listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or clicking her tongue. Victoria always was a piece of work, she said when I finished. Even as a child, always convinced the world owed her more than she got. But the documents can be faked. She leaned forward. I may be old, but I'm not stupid. I've seen plenty of forged signatures in my time. Why would she do this? Aunt Catherine sighed. Your grandfather's will. He left the business to your father with a provision. If your father was ever proven unfit or his heirs committed fraud, control would revert to Victoria. My blood ran cold. She's trying to frame me to get the company? Seems that way. She struggled to her feet. Come on, we're going back down there. I can't. Everyone thinks what Victoria wants them to think. She gripped her walker firmly, but I know something she doesn't. We made our way back to the elevator. My phone buzzed constantly. Messages from Alan, Amy, Mom. I ignored them all, focusing on Aunt Catherine's determined shuffle. The reception hall had descended into chaos when we returned. Families clustered in defensive groups, voices raised in accusation and defense. Victoria held court near the projection screen, distributing copies of her evidence to anyone who'd take them. There she is, someone shouted, and heads turned our way. Alan appeared at my elbow immediately. Are you okay? I've been looking everywhere. I'm fine, I lied, then noticed his sleeve. Is that blood? Andrew took a swing at me. He touched his split lip gingerly, said I was part of your scam. Enough! Aunt Catherine's voice carried surprising authority for someone her age. She made her way to the microphone stand, walker clicking against the floor. All of you, sit down and shut up. The room stilled. Even Victoria paused mid-gesture, papers clutched in her manicured hands. I've been watching this family tear itself apart for decades, Aunt Catherine continued, always fighting over money, position, who got what. Well, I'm done staying quiet. She reached into her purse, pulling out a manila envelope. Victoria, dear, you might want to sit down for this. I don't take orders from the woman who holds your divorce settlement papers. Aunt Catherine smiled sweetly. The real ones, I mean, not the version you filed with the court. Victoria's face drained of color. You're bluffing. Am I? She opened the envelope. Marcus sent these to me before he died. Seems he felt guilty about helping you hide assets during your divorce, helping you claim poverty while squirreling away millions. That's a lie. Is it? Aunt Catherine pulled out a document. Bank statements from the Cayman Islands, signed by you and Marcus, dated during your divorce proceedings when you claimed to be destitute. Dad stepped forward, studying the papers. His expression shifted from confusion to rage. You hid $3 million? I gave you a settlement based on false information? It's not what it looks like, Victoria stammered. Funny, Amy said coldly. That's what you wouldn't let Angelica say. Aunt Catherine wasn't finished. There's more. Seems Victoria has been accessing the company systems after hours, not to check on finances, but to create false records. You can't prove that, Victoria snapped. Actually, I can. Alan stepped forward, holding up his phone. I had a friend in IT security run a trace on those forged documents. The metadata shows they were created last week, not months ago. All from an IP address registered to Victoria's home. The room erupted. Relatives who'd been suspicious of me turned their anger on Victoria. She backed away from the crowd, her carefully constructed attack crumbling. You don't understand, she said desperately. I deserve that company. I'm the oldest. It should have been mine. You got exactly what you deserved, Dad said quietly. A fair share, which you apparently supplemented through fraud. Victoria's eyes darted around the room, looking for allies and finding none. Even her own children stepped away, shock and disappointment clear on their faces. This isn't over, she hissed, grabbing her purse. I'll sue. You'll leave, Aunt Catherine interrupted. Now, before I decide to share these documents with the authorities. Victoria fled, her heels clicking frantically against the floor. The room remained silent until the doors swung shut behind her. Kelsey was the first to speak. Well, that was dramatic. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. She walked over to where I stood, still clutching Alan's arm for support. I'm so sorry, I started. I ruined your wedding. Are you kidding? She hugged me tight. No one will ever forget this reception. Plus, you saved the family business. That trumps any wedding drama. But I lied to everyone. About Alan. About being in love? She pulled back, smiling. Honey, the only person you were lying to was yourself. The DJ, who'd been hiding behind his equipment during the confrontation, tentatively started playing music again. Couples began returning to the dance floor, the crisis passing into family legend. Mom appeared at my side, mascara smudged but smiling. We need to talk about your communication skills, young lady. But first, dance with your young man. He's not, I started, then stopped. Actually, I don't know what we are anymore. Alan held out his hand. We're two people who are really bad at pretending. Want to try being really good at the real thing? I took his hand, letting him lead me onto the dance floor. Around us, relatives whispered and pointed. But for once, I didn't care about appearances. So, I said as we swayed to the music. Seattle. Turned it down this morning. He spun me gently. Figured I should stick around. Someone needs to keep you from making deals with random coworkers in supply closets. That was a one-time thing, I protested. Good, because I'm not sharing you with anyone else, fake or otherwise. eyes. Amy danced past with her husband, giving me a thumbs up. Dad led Mom in a careful waltz, both of them watching us with soft expressions. Even Aunt Catherine had found a partner, shuffling slowly but determinedly with Uncle Jerry. I'm sorry, I said quietly, for dragging you into this mess, for the contract, for giving me an excuse to fall in love with you. Alan pulled me closer. Yeah, how dare you? The contract specifically stated no falling in love, I reminded him. Good thing I'm terrible at following rules. He grinned. Besides, you violated it first. No hypotheticals, remember? But you kept wondering what if. When did you know? I asked. That it wasn't fake anymore? The venue with the terrible coffee. You automatically ordered mine black with 2 sugars without asking. Such a small thing, but he shrugged. You? Your mom's call. When you told me about Priya, you trusted me with that pain. I met his eyes. No one was paying you to be vulnerable. Best investment I ever made, he said. Even if I never see that $2,000. About that, I winced. My credit cards are maxed. Can I pay you in installments? How about we call it even? He dipped me dramatically. You helped me realize I was ready for something real. That's worth more than money. The song ended, transitioning to something slower. Other couples joined us on the floor, the earlier drama fading into background noise. Tomorrow there would be questions, explanations, probably some awkward family dinners. But tonight, in this moment, everything felt exactly right. Hey, Alan said suddenly. Want to know something funny? What? I actually hate that song. Don't Stop Believing. It's overplayed and cheesy. I laughed, genuinely surprised. Then why did you pick it? Because in that moment, looking at you, it was the only thing I could think of. Don't stop believing we'd find each other. He shook his head. Even my panic responses are sappy when it comes to you. I love you, I blurted out, then immediately covered my mouth. Sorry, that's probably too soon. We should date for real first. Get to know each other without contracts, and he kissed me, cutting off my rambling. Around us, relatives cheered and clinked glasses. When we finally broke apart, both of us were grinning like idiots. I love you too, he said. Have for months. Probably since you ugly cried over wedding cake flavors. That was not ugly crying, I protested. It really was. Snot everywhere. Very attractive. I smacked his shoulder, but I was laughing. Real laughter. Not the polite kind I'd perfected during our fake dates. The rest of the reception passed in a blur of congratulations, questions, and dance floor disasters. Andrew eventually apologized for punching Alan, though he still seemed suspicious. Aunt Catherine held court at a corner table, regaling younger relatives with stories of family scandals that made ours look tame. As the night wound down, Alan and I found ourselves on the same balcony where we'd had our contract-violating conversation the night before. The city sparkled below us, full of possibility. So what happens now? I asked, leaning against the railing. Now? He wrapped his arms around me from behind. Now we date like normal people. No contracts, no rules, no predetermined end dates. That sounds terrifying, I admitted. The best things usually are. He pressed a kiss to my temple. But hey, we already know we're compatible. We've met each other's families, survived a crisis together, and you know exactly how I take my coffee. Plus, we have all those fake photos that turned out to be real memories, I added. See, we're already ahead of most couples. He turned me to face him, though we should probably take some new ones. Ones where we're not pretending. Deal, I said, then paused. But no more contracts. No more contracts, he agreed. Just promises. The reception officially ended at midnight, but our group lingered in the hotel bar afterward. Kelsey and her new husband joined us, still in their wedding attire, but relaxed and happy. Amy curled up against her husband, occasionally shooting me knowing looks. Even Mom and Dad stayed up past their usual bedtime, Dad nursing a whiskey while Mom switched to water. So, Kelsey said, raising her champagne glass, to family, the real kind and the kind we choose. To truth, Amy added. Eventually, to contracts, Alan said with a grin, and breaking them. To Aunt Catherine, I finished, and perfect timing. We clinked glasses, the sound bright and clear in the quiet bar. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, dealing with Victoria's threats, explaining everything to extended family, figuring out how to merge our fake relationship into a real one. But tonight, surrounded by the people who mattered most, those problems seemed manageable. You know, Mom said thoughtfully, we still have all those venue deposits. Mom, no, I groaned. We literally just figured out we're really dating. I'm just saying, waste not, want not. She winked at Alan. Though maybe wait until you've been together more than 5 minutes before planning another wedding. 5 months, Alan corrected. We've technically been together 5 months. Do fake months count? Amy asked. Everything counts, I said firmly. The good, the bad, the contractually obligated. It's all part of our story. Our very weird story, Alan added. The best ones always are, Dad said, surprising everyone with his philosophical input. Your mother and I met when I accidentally hit her with my car door. Not exactly Romeo and Juliet. You never told me that, I said. Some stories need the right time to be told. He smiled at Mom, like yours. It might have started as a lie, but look where it led. The hotel bar closed at 2, but none of us moved. Kelsey's new husband ordered another round while Alan traced patterns on my hand under the table. My phone buzzed with texts from relatives who'd left the reception early, all variations of what just happened that I'd deal with tomorrow. I still can't believe Victoria tried that, Amy said, shaking her head. 40 years of resentment just exploding like that. Dad set down his whiskey harder than necessary. She's been planning this. Those forged documents weren't thrown together overnight. But why now? Mom asked. Why at Kelsey's wedding? Aunt Catherine cleared her throat from her corner booth because she knew everyone would be here. Maximum audience for her little performance. The bartender dimmed the lights, a not so subtle hint that we'd overstayed our welcome. We gathered our things slowly, nobody ready for the night to end. Alan helped Aunt Catherine with her walker while I collected abandoned champagne flutes from our table. Wait, Kelsey said suddenly. Where's Victoria staying? She booked a room here, right? We all froze. The same hotel. The same floor, probably. Dad pulled out his phone, scrolling through messages. 3rd floor, he confirmed. Room 312. I'm on the 3rd floor, Aunt Catherine said quietly. Room 318. The elevator ride felt endless. We crowded in together, Aunt Catherine's walker taking up most of the space. When the doors opened on 3, the hallway stretched empty in both directions. Normal, quiet, but something felt wrong. Alan stepped out first, then helped Aunt Catherine maneuver her walker through the doors. I followed, my heels sinking into the plush carpet. Room 312's door stood slightly open, a sliver of light cutting across the hallway. Stay here, Dad said, moving toward the room, but Aunt Catherine was already shuffling forward, her walker clicking against the doorframe as she pushed inside. We found Victoria at the desk, surrounded by papers and manila folders, her laptop open to what looked like bank records. Breaking and entering now? Victoria didn't look up from her screen. How predictable. Your door was open, Amy pointed out. Was it? Victoria's fingers flew across across the keyboard. Must have been the wind. Alan moved closer to the desk, studying the papers scattered across its surface. His expression darkened. These are personnel files from the company. Public records, Victoria said smoothly. Amazing what you can find when you know where to look. Dad snatched one of the folders, flipping through its contents. These aren't public. These are internal HR documents. How did you— Does it matter? Victoria finally looked up, her eyes bright with something that made my skin crawl. The damage is already done. Even if Aunt Catherine's little revelation cleared Angelica, doubt lingers. Investors hate scandal. Clients despise drama. You're trying to tank the company out of spite? Mom's voice cracked. Your own family's business? My family? Victoria laughed, sharp and bitter. You mean the family that shut me out? That gave everything to my baby brother while I got table scraps? You got 20%, Dad said through gritted teeth, plus the settlement. Plus nothing. Victoria slammed her laptop shut. 20% of what should have been mine entirely. Do you know what it's like? Watching him build something I helped start? Watching him hand positions to his daughters while my children get nothing? Your children chose their own paths, Aunt Catherine interjected. Jonathan's a doctor. Joni runs her own restaurant. They weren't given the option. Victoria stood abruptly, papers cascading to the floor. He made sure of that, kept them at arm's length, made them feel like outsiders in their own family. Alan bent to gather the fallen documents, but Victoria's heel came down on his hand. He jerked back with a hiss of pain. Don't touch those, she warned. Enough, I said, finding my voice. What do you want, Victoria? Really? She studied me for a long moment, something calculating in her expression. What I've always wanted. What's rightfully mine. The company, Dad said flatly. Not just the company. Victoria moved around the desk, her movements predatory. Recognition, respect, my place in this family's history. You had that, Amy protested. You threw it away with lies and manipulation. I threw it away? Victoria's voice rose. I was pushed away, sidelined, treated like a footnote in my own family's story. Kelsey appeared in the doorway, still in her wedding dress but with sneakers replacing her heels. Security's on their way up. Someone complained about noise. Victoria's face went pale. She lunged for her laptop, but Alan was faster, snatching it away. She grabbed for the folders next, clutching them to her chest like armor. Those won't help you, Aunt Catherine said calmly. Whatever scheme you're planning, it's over. You don't know anything, Victoria spat. You've been in Florida playing retirement while I've been here, fighting for what's mine. Fighting? Dad stepped forward. You call forgery and fraud fighting? I call it survival. Victoria backed toward the window, papers crumpling in her grip. You have no idea what I've sacrificed, what I've lost. You lost it yourself, Mom said quietly. Every choice you made led here. Two security guards appeared in the doorway, their expressions professionally neutral. Kelsey whispered something to them, gesturing toward Victoria. Ma'am, the taller guard said, we've had complaints. I'm going to need you to come with us. I'm a guest here, Victoria protested. I have a room. Not anymore. The hotel manager appeared behind the guards. Given tonight's disturbance and multiple complaints, we're asking you to leave the premises. Victoria's grip on the folders tightened. You can't do this. Actually, we can. The manager held up a tablet showing security footage. We have video of you accessing areas you weren't authorized to enter, including the business center after hours. My stomach dropped. The business center, where the reception's projection system was controlled, where she'd uploaded those forged documents. You broke into hotel property? Alan asked, incredulous. Victoria's mask finally cracked completely. I did what I had to do, what none of you would ever understand. The security guards moved forward, flanking her. She clutched the folders tighter, papers spilling onto the floor. Bank statements, personnel files, photos of family gatherings with faces circled in red ink. How long have you been planning this? I asked, staring at the scattered evidence of her obsession. Since the day he cut me out, she said, eyes locked on Dad. Since the day you decided your daughters were worth more than your sister. I never— Dad started. Save it. Victoria let the guards guide her toward the door. This isn't over. You can kick me out, but I know things. I have copies. You have nothing, Aunt Catherine interrupted, except a future explaining yourself to authorities. Victoria jerked against the guard's hold. You wouldn't dare. Try me. Aunt Catherine's voice was steel. I've been patient for 40 years. That ends tonight. The guards escorted Victoria out, her protests echoing down the hallway. We stood in the wreckage of her room, surrounded by evidence of months, maybe years, of planning. Alan knelt to gather more papers, wincing as he flexed his injured hand. Let me see, I said, taking his hand gently. A purple bruise was already forming where Victoria's heel had connected. It's fine, he said, but let me examine it anyway. We need to go through all of this, Dad said, surveying the mess. See what else she might have planned. Tomorrow, Mom said firmly. Tonight, we rest, we process, a crash echoed from the hallway. We rushed out to find Victoria on the floor, her ankle twisted at an unnatural angle. The security guards knelt beside her, one already calling for medical assistance. Don't touch me, she screamed, trying to crawl away. This is assault. I'll sue everyone. The hotel, the family, everyone. Ma'am, you need to stay still, the guard said. You fell. We were barely touching you. Liar! But her movement sent fresh pain across her face. My ankle. The EMTs arrived within minutes, professional and efficient. They stabilized her ankle while she continued threatening lawsuits, her voice growing hoarse. As they loaded her onto a stretcher, she locked eyes with me. This is your fault, she hissed. All of it. If you hadn't lied about your engagement, none of this would have happened. You're right, I said quietly. I lied, but you chose how to respond. You chose to forge documents, to break into systems, to try to destroy your own family. My family destroyed me first, she said as they wheeled her away. The hallway fell silent. Hotel guests peered out from cracked doors, drawn by the commotion. The manager apologized profusely, offering comp rooms and free breakfast. We declined, too exhausted to care about amenities. I'll stay and deal with the room, Dad said, gesturing to Victoria's open door. Make sure nothing important disappears. I'll help, Alan offered, but I tugged him back. Your hand needs ice, I said, and we need to talk. We left Dad and the hotel manager to sort through Victoria's abandoned schemes. The elevator ride to my floor passed in silence, Alan cradling his bruised hand against his chest. In my room, I wrapped ice in a towel while he sat on the bed, watching me with an unreadable expression. Quite a night, he finally said. Not exactly typical wedding reception entertainment. I pressed the ice to his hand, sitting beside him. I'm sorry she hurt you. Physically or emotionally? He attempted a smile. Because I've had worse on both counts. This is serious, Alan. She could have broken your hand, but she didn't. He adjusted the ice with his free hand. And honestly, getting stepped on by your aunt is probably the least weird thing that's happened to us. Despite everything, I laughed. Our relationship timeline is insane. Fake engagement, real feelings, family fraud scheme, villain revelation, and now what? Now we figure out what normal looks like, he said. Without contracts or crises or crazy ants, do we even know how to do normal? Only one way to find out. He set aside the ice, taking my hand with his uninjured one. But first, I need to tell you something. My heart stuttered. If this is where you reveal you're also committing fraud, I might scream. No fraud. Just, he took a breath. I didn't turn down Seattle this morning. The words hit like cold water. What? I wanted to, planned to, but when I called, they'd already filled the position. He squeezed my hand. I spent 3 days paralyzed by indecision, and it cost me the job. Alan, I'm so sorry. Your loans will get paid eventually. That's not the point. He met my eyes. The point is, I hesitated because I was scared. Not of staying, but of admitting why I wanted to stay. Why did you want to stay? You know why. His thumb traced circles on my palm. The same reason you cried over wedding cake. The same reason we broke our own rules. Because somewhere in all the pretending, we forgot we were pretending. So what do we do now? Now, he pulled me closer. Now we stop pretending altogether. No more contracts, no more rules, just us, figuring it out as we go. That terrifies me, I admitted. Me too. He pressed his forehead to mine. But I'd rather be terrified with you than safe with anyone else. A knock interrupted whatever I might have said. Amy's voice carried through the door, urgent and strained. Angelica, you need to come back upstairs. Now. We found them in Aunt Catherine's room, crowded around her laptop. Dad looked pale. Mom gripped his arm, and Amy gestured frantically at the screen. What's wrong? I asked. Victoria sent emails, Amy said, to the entire client list, board members, investors, everyone. My legs went weak. Alan steadied me as I leaned over to read the screen. The email was lengthy, detailed, and devastating. Victoria had laid out her version of events. My fake engagement, the money she claimed I'd stolen, the family's supposed corruption, but worse, she'd attached documents. Some forged, some real, all damaging when presented without context. When? I asked. Scheduled send, Dad said grimly. Set to go out at 3 a.m. We have, he checked his watch, 12 minutes. Can we stop it? Not from here. Alan was already pulling out his phone. But I know someone who might help. He dialed quickly, speaking in rapid technical terms I didn't understand. The minutes ticked by with agonizing slowness. Mom paced. Amy refreshed the email constantly. Aunt Catherine sat perfectly still, her expression unreadable. Got it, Alan said suddenly. He's in. He's trying to access the server. Is that legal? Mom asked. Do we care? Amy shot back. Alan's friend worked frantically on the other end of the line. We watched the clock, holding our breath. 2:57, 2:58, 2:59. Done, Alan announced. Emails deleted from the server. Crisis averted. The room exhaled collectively. Dad sank into a chair, head in his hands. Mom rubbed his back while Amy high-fived Alan. We're not done, Aunt Catherine said quietly. Victoria won't stop. Not after tonight. Then what do we do? I asked. We protect ourselves, Dad said, raising his head. First thing Monday, we audit everything. Every account, every transaction, every document she might have touched. I'll help, Alan offered. My IT friend owes me favors. We can trace her digital footprint, see what else she might have planned. And I'll handle the legal side, Aunt Catherine added. My lawyer has been begging for something interesting. This is going to get ugly, Mom warned. It already is, Amy pointed out, but we're together. That's what matters. We stayed in Aunt Catherine's room until dawn broke over the city. Plans were made, strategies discussed, alliances strengthened. By the time exhaustion forced us to our beds, we had a battle plan. Alan walked me to my room one last time. So much for our normal first date, he said. Please, normal is overrated. I kissed him softly. Besides, we've already survived fake engagements and family fraud. Everything else should be easy. I love your optimism, he said, completely unfounded, but adorable. I love you too, I replied, then froze. I mean, I know what you mean. He kissed me again. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we start our real relationship. No contracts, no drama, just us. But as I closed the door, I knew he was wrong. The drama wasn't over. Victoria's emails might be stopped, but her campaign had just begun. There would be investigations, accusations, family divisions that might never heal. Monday arrived too quickly. The office felt different knowing what waited in the company files. Alan met me at the elevator with coffee and a grim expression. My friend found something, he said quietly. Victoria's been in the system for months. She has copies of everything. Then we're screwed? Not necessarily. He guided me to a conference room where Dad, Amy, and the company lawyer waited. We have options. The next hours blurred together. Financial audits, security reviews, HR investigations. Victoria had been thorough, but she'd also been sloppy. Her digital fingerprints were everywhere, evidence of her long-planned revenge. We can prove the forgeries, the lawyer announced, but it'll be messy, public, expensive. Do it, Dad said without hesitation. I won't let her destroy what we've built. By noon, official letters were sent. By evening, Victoria's lawyer called. She wanted to negotiate. No, Dad said flatly. She made her choice. The war had begun.